I stared at the text message on my phone, and my hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped it. "We need the beach house for the wedding. You have to leave by June 1st. That was it. No pleas, no negotiation, just a demand from my sister Jennifer, who apparently had decided that the property I'd owned free and clear for 5 years was now hers to commandeer. I read it 3 more times, waiting for it to make sense. It didn't. My sister and I had always been close, or at least I thought we were. We had family dinners every other Sunday. We texted about stupid stuff, memes, recipes, our mom's endless drama. And now she was telling me to pack up my entire life because she wanted to throw a wedding party at my house. The beach house wasn't some vacation property either. It was home. I'd bought it after my divorce from Marcus was finalized, took the settlement I'd fought for tooth and nail, and put a down payment on this beautiful old Victorian just 3 blocks from the Atlantic. The place had become my sanctuary, the one thing in my life that was completely, undeniably mine. My name is Ashley. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a senior graphic designer at a marketing firm in Portland, Maine. I'm the type of person who plans ahead, pays her taxes, and doesn't ask for much from anyone. I'd spent the last 5 years rebuilding myself after the divorce. Therapy, yoga classes, a renovated kitchen that I'd personally supervised with the contractor. The beach house was the physical manifestation of my comeback. Now my sister wanted me gone. Let me back up, because to understand how we got here, you need to know what my life looked like just 2 weeks before that text message arrived. You need to understand the setup, the false sense of security, the way everything seemed to be working out perfectly. That's the part that makes what happened next so much harder to believe. 5 years earlier, I'd walked away from my marriage with nothing but my dignity and a decent settlement. Marcus had been a charming liar, the kind of guy who could convince you that black was white while smiling at you like you were the only person in the world. We'd met at a coffee shop in our 20s, dated for 3 years, married for 10. 10 years of believing he loved me. 10 years of planning our future together, talking about kids we never had because the timing wasn't right, saving for a house that never materialized. Turns out Marcus had been spending our savings on a girlfriend named Tiffany, who worked at his office. My divorce attorney, Linda Castellano, was absolutely ruthless in depositions. She found everything: the credit card statements, the hotel receipts, the emails where Marcus called me boring and not his type anymore. When the settlement was finalized, I got the house we'd bought together in Portland, $50,000 in liquid assets, and my freedom. I sold the Portland house 3 months later for $230,000. My mortgage had been paid down to about $90,000, so I walked away with $140,000 in the bank. I found the beach house almost by accident. I was driving aimlessly one Sunday afternoon, trying to clear my head, when I saw the for sale sign on Maple Street, just a block away from the rocky Maine coast. The house was a disaster. Built in 1887, original hardwood floors buried under shag carpet, ancient plumbing, a roof that was probably older than my mother. But it had potential. It had bones, and the price was right: $120,000. I put down $80,000, got a mortgage for the rest, and spent the next 4 years slowly bringing it back to life. I stripped wallpaper on weekends. I learned how to refinish hardwood floors by watching YouTube videos at midnight. I painted every room myself, choosing colors that made me feel alive again. Sage green in the living room, soft blue in the master bedroom, warm cream in the kitchen. The kitchen was my masterpiece. I'd saved up for new appliances over 18 months, choosing each one carefully. A 6-burner Viking stove, a Sub-Zero refrigerator, a marble island where I could actually entertain people again. And I did entertain. I hosted Thanksgivings and birthday parties. My best friend Sarah came over for wine nights. My mom visited for long weekends, sitting in the sunroom with a book, telling me how proud she was that I'd put myself back together. Even my brother-in-law David had commented during a family barbecue last summer that the place was genuinely stunning. He was right. It was. I built something beautiful, something that was entirely mine, something that proved I could survive the worst and come out stronger. Jennifer had always seemed happy for me. When I first showed her the house, Right after I closed on it, she'd walked around hugging herself, saying things like, "This is so you, Ash. This is perfect." She'd helped me pick out paint colors. She'd brought her kids over for the housewarming party. Her older daughter, Emma, who was 12 at the time, had asked if she could come back every summer. "Of course," I'd told her. "You can come any time." But Jennifer had always been the golden child in our family. She'd married young, David at 23, and had 2 kids before she was 30. She had the dream, the 3-bedroom suburban home with the white picket fence, the husband with the steady job, the minivan, the college fund. She was the one our mother bragged about at book club, and I think, somewhere deep down, she'd always resented that my life didn't look like hers, and then later, that my post-divorce life looked even less like hers. Around 6 months before that fateful text message, Jennifer had announced her engagement to a guy named Brandon. Not to her existing husband, David, to Brandon, who worked in IT and lived in Boston. She'd gotten divorced the year before, a relatively quiet affair, no lawyers, no drama. They just decided to co-parent and move on. Her Instagram had slowly filled with pictures of her and Brandon, at restaurants, at concerts, at this gorgeous garden in Boston. And then, 3 months ago, he'd proposed at sunset on a boat. The ring was enormous, a 3-carat cushion-cut diamond. She'd posted about 40 pictures of it. She was planning what she called a destination wedding, except it wasn't going to be in some exotic location. It was going to be on the coast of Maine, at my beach house. I only found out because she mentioned it in passing during a family dinner at our mom's house. We were eating pot roast, and Jennifer said something like, "So Brandon and I are thinking about having the ceremony right on the beach, and the reception could flow into the house. There's so much space there, and it's already so beautiful." My mom had lit up. "Oh, Jen, that would be absolutely stunning. The ocean as a backdrop, the sunset. It would be like a magazine shoot." I'd smiled and nodded and said something about how nice that would be. I honestly thought she was just brainstorming, throwing out ideas. I didn't think she was planning to actually do it at my house without asking me. The next 2 months, I watched her wedding plans develop on Instagram. She posted mood boards, venue sketches, fabric swatches. She was having 200 people. 200. My beach house could maybe fit 80 people comfortably. She was planning a band, catering, a full bar, valet parking. None of this had been discussed with me. None of it. And then, 2 weeks before that text message, I got a call from my mom. She was excited, almost breathless. "Jen wants to talk to you about something," she said, "but she asked me to call first, to kind of prepare you." That's when the first little alarm bell went off in my head. "Prepare me for what?" I asked. "Well, she's hoping you'll let her use the beach house for the wedding. I think it's the most perfect venue, and Brandon's family thinks so too. Your house is just so beautiful, honey. And Jen mentioned that you don't really... you're not seeing anyone right now, are you? So you wouldn't need it for anything special that day?" The way she said it, like my single status meant my home should be available for her use, made me feel something shift in my chest. Not quite anger yet, more like the moment before you fall, when you realize the ground isn't where you thought it was. "Let me talk to Jennifer directly," I said. But Jennifer didn't call. Instead, I got that text message 2 days later. No discussion, no asking, no, "Would you be willing to consider this?" Just a demand. "We need the beach house for the wedding. You have to leave by June 1st. I sat in my kitchen, in the house I'd rebuilt piece by piece, and I felt something inside me crystallize into something cold and sharp. The text was sent on a Thursday at 4:47 p.m. I didn't respond that day. I didn't respond the next day either. By Saturday, Jennifer was calling. My phone rang while I was painting the upstairs hallway a soft taupe color. "Hey," she said, her voice bright and casual, like she hadn't just told me to vacate my own home. "Did you get my text?" "I did," I said quietly. "Great. So we're thinking June 15th for the ceremony, and we'll need the house from June 1st through June 17th for setup and cleanup. That should be plenty of time for you to make other arrangements." Other arrangements, like I was a temporary tenant being asked to relocate. "Jennifer," I said, keeping my voice level, "I need to understand what's happening here. Are you asking me if you can use my house for your wedding reception? There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. Well, Brandon's mom suggested the venue downtown, but it's not really. We both just think your house would be so perfect, and you're not using it for anything. I live here, I said. It's my home. I know that, but you don't have, like, a family or anything that would require the space that day. And we're talking about 200 people. This is important to us. This is the biggest day of my life. The biggest day of her life. Not the biggest day of our family. The biggest day of hers. And it required my house. I don't remember everything I said after that, but I know I didn't agree to anything. I told her I needed to think about it, that I couldn't give her an answer right then. She got frustrated. I could hear it creeping into her voice, that edge she got when she didn't get what she wanted. She started talking about how family was supposed to help family, how I was being selfish, how she'd always been there for me. When? I asked. When have you been there for me? After your divorce, she said. I listened to you cry for months. You texted me twice, I said, and both times you made it about your problems with David. The call ended badly. She said something about how I always made everything about myself, and I said something about how that was rich coming from her, and then neither of us said anything for a few seconds. Finally, she just hung up. I stood in my hallway with the paintbrush in my hand, dripping taupe paint onto the drop cloth, and I realized that this wasn't about the wedding. This was about something much deeper. This was about the fact that my sister had looked at the one thing I'd built entirely for myself, the one place in the world that was completely and undeniably mine, and she'd decided she wanted it. And when I wouldn't immediately hand it over, she was treating me like the villain. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning. This was the first blow in what was about to become the most brutal family conflict of my life, and I had no idea how far Jennifer was willing to go to get what she wanted, or how many people she was willing to hurt in the process. That Sunday, I got a call from my mother, and that's when things started to get really ugly. My mom called on Sunday at 6:47 p.m., just as I was pulling a casserole out of the oven. I already knew what was coming. Jennifer had probably spent the last 2 days working her, planting seeds, asking for backup. My mother was always easier to convince than I was. "Honey, I really think you should reconsider this whole thing," she said, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "Jen's wedding is the most important event our family has had in years, and you're in such a good position. You have the house, you have the space. Why not just let her have this one day?" One day. That's what she called it. One day that required me to pack up my life, vacate my own home, and pretend it didn't matter. "Because it's my house, Mom," I said quietly. "It's the one thing I have that's entirely mine." "I know that, sweetie, but family is supposed to help family. Your sister would do the same for you." "No, she wouldn't," I said. "If I asked her to vacate her house for my wedding, she'd say absolutely not. And I wouldn't expect her to." My mother was quiet for a moment. "Well, David says the whole thing is ridiculous too, but Jen's determined. She's already putting down a deposit on catering. She's already hired a photographer. She's already told Brandon's family that the wedding would be at your place. She's made commitments." That's when it hit me. Jennifer hadn't asked, she'd announced. She'd made promises to people based on something that wasn't hers to promise. And now I was the problem, because she'd gotten ahead of herself. "Mom, I need you to understand something," I said, my voice steady but tight. "I am not going to ask my sister to move her wedding. I'm not going to tell her no. But I also am not going to let her bully me out of my own home. Those are her choices to deal with, not mine." "You're being unreasonable," my mother said, and I heard something shift in her tone. Anger. Real anger. "You're being selfish. This is your sister." "Exactly," I said. "It's my sister, and my sister didn't even ask me. She told me, like I was a tenant she could evict." The conversation went downhill from there. My mother said things about how I'd always been difficult, how I'd never been good at compromise, how I'd ruined my marriage because I was too stubborn. That last one landed hard, even though I knew it wasn't true. Linda Castellano had made it very clear during the divorce that Marcus's infidelity was not my fault. "I'm going to give you time to think about this," my mother said finally, but I hope you'll do the right thing. Family comes first, Ashley." She hung up before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the appliances I'd saved for, the marble island I'd designed, and I felt something crystallize inside me. I was done trying to be reasonable. I was done trying to keep the peace. Jennifer had declared war, and I was going to fight back. The next morning, I called Linda Castellano, not because I needed a lawyer, not yet anyway, but because I needed someone who understood how to fight. We met for coffee at a little place near her office downtown. Linda was in her late 60s, sharp as a tack, with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain. She'd fought hard for me during my divorce, and I trusted her judgment. "Tell me everything," she said, pulling out a small notebook. I did. I told her about the text message, the phone call, the casual demand that I evacuate my own property. I told her about my mother's call, about the implications that I was being selfish and unreasonable. I told her about the deposit Jennifer had already put down, the promises she'd made to people, the photographer she'd already hired. Linda listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and took off her glasses. "Okay," she said, "here's what I'm hearing. Your sister has made assumptions about property that isn't hers. She's made commitments based on those assumptions, and now she's trying to pressure you into accommodating those commitments through emotional manipulation and family pressure. Is that fair?" "Yes," I said, "exactly. The good news is that you have every legal right to say no," Linda said. "The property is in your name. You pay the taxes, the mortgage, the insurance. You're not obligated to allow anyone to use it for anything. Not your mother, not your sister, not anyone." "But they're family," I said, and immediately felt stupid for saying it. "Family doesn't get to use that as a free pass to walk over you," Linda said firmly. "I've seen it 100 times. Family members feel entitled to things because they're family. They think blood means you should sacrifice for them, no matter what. And when you don't, they act like you're the villain. It's manipulation, Ashley, plain and simple." "So what do I do?" I asked. "First, you document everything. Get copies of those text messages, any emails, anything in writing. Second, you send her a formal written response. Not a text, not a call, a letter or an email with a clear subject line and a clear message. Third, you prepare yourself for the fact that she's going to escalate. When people don't get what they want through guilt and manipulation, they usually try anger next." I nodded, but my stomach was churning. I didn't want to escalate things. I didn't want to have a formal letter. I wanted my sister to just understand, to just respect my boundary. But I was beginning to understand that wasn't going to happen. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote an email to Jennifer. I kept it professional, unemotional, but firm. "Jennifer, I received your text message regarding the use of my home for your wedding. While I'm happy to discuss how I might support your wedding in other ways, I am not able to vacate my home for an extended period. The house is my primary residence and my workplace. I understand this may not be the answer you were hoping for, but I hope you'll understand and respect my decision. I'm happy to talk about alternatives. Ashley." I read it 3 times, then sent it before I could second-guess myself. The response came 40 minutes later. Not an email, a call. I let it go to voicemail. "Ashley, what the hell?" Jennifer's voice was sharp, furious. "You're being completely unreasonable. Do you have any idea how much money I've already spent? Do you have any idea how embarrassed I'm going to be if I have to tell Brandon's family that we can't use your house? This is ridiculous. You're being selfish and petty, and honestly, I'm starting to think you never cared about our relationship at all. Call me back." I didn't call her back. What I did instead was document everything. I printed out the original text message. I printed out the email Linda had suggested I send. I saved Jennifer's voicemail as an audio file. I made a folder on my computer labeled Wedding Drama and put everything in it. Then I did something else. I called my friend Sarah. Sarah had been my best friend since college. She'd been there through the Marcus disaster, had held my hand through the divorce, had helped me paint the living room of the beach house while we drank cheap wine and sang off-key to Taylor Swift songs. She was the kind of friend who would be honest with me, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear. "I need to tell you something," I said when she arrived at my house that evening, "and I need you to listen to the whole thing before you respond." I told her everything: the text, the calls, the demands, the guilt trips from my mother, the escalation. Sarah sat on my couch, her expression getting darker and darker. "That's insane," she said when I finished. "That's absolutely insane. She can't just demand to use your house." "Apparently she can," I said bitterly. "And when I say no, I'm the bad guy." "Have you considered just letting her do it?" Sarah asked carefully. "Like, I know it's your house, and I know she's being completely unreasonable, but is it possible she'll just drop the whole thing if you agree?" "No," I said. "That's not how this works. If I agree to this, she'll think it's okay to ask for things like this in the future. She'll think my boundaries don't matter. And honestly, I've spent the last 5 years rebuilding my life and learning to have boundaries. I'm not about to throw that away because my sister threw a tantrum." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay, then you need to be prepared for this to get worse before it gets better. Because she's not going to just accept this. She's going to push back. She's going to get other people involved. She's going to make you look like the bad guy." "I know," I said, "but what choice do I have?" "You don't," Sarah said. "You're doing the right thing. It's just going to suck for a while." She was right. It did suck. The next week was the worst. Jennifer called repeatedly, leaving increasingly hostile voicemails. She texted in all caps. She sent angry emails. She called my mother, who then called me, who then sent me a 3-page letter about family loyalty and responsibility. She even called my workplace, which was shocking enough that when my boss, Derek, called me into his office, my heart nearly stopped. "Everything okay at home?" Derek asked carefully. "Your sister called here looking for you. She seemed upset." I wanted to die. I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Family stuff. It won't happen again." "It's fine," Derek said, though he looked concerned. "Just wanted to make sure you were okay." I wasn't okay. I was furious. Jennifer had actually called my workplace. She had literally involved my employer in our family drama. That was when I realized that Sarah was right. This was going to get worse. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. 3 days later, I got a call from David, Jennifer's ex-husband, the guy I barely spoke to beyond polite hellos at family events. "Hey, Ashley," he said, and his voice was apologetic. "I'm calling because I think you should know what Jen's planning. She's been talking to your mom about you and, look, I don't want to get involved in this, but I think you deserve to know that she's planning to tell people you refuse to help with her wedding because you're jealous of her happiness." My blood went cold. "What?" "I know," David said. "It's not true. I know you're not jealous, but she's been spinning a narrative. She's been telling people that you've always been resentful of her, that you're trying to sabotage her wedding because you're bitter about your own divorce. She's been calling relatives, telling them that you're being cruel and selfish." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I know Jen and I know how she operates," David said, "and I think you should be prepared for the fact that she's going to try to turn the family against you. She's already told your mom that you said some pretty awful things about her during your last phone call, things I don't think you actually said." After I hung up with David, I sat in my kitchen and cried. Not because I was sad, but because I was so angry I couldn't see straight. Jennifer was lying about me. She was spreading rumors. She was trying to poison my family relationships to get what she wanted. I called Linda again. "This is escalation," Linda said when I told her what David had said. "She's realizing that guilt and anger aren't working, so now she's trying character assassination. It's actually a good sign in a weird way. It means she's running out of options." "How is that a good sign?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Because it means you've held your ground," Linda said. "She's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. The question is, what are you going to do?" I thought about that for a long time. What was I going to do? The answer came to me the next morning when I was sitting on my porch with coffee, watching the ocean. I was going to stop being passive. I was going to stop waiting for Jennifer to back down or for my family to come to their senses. I was going to take control of the narrative. I sent an email to every member of my immediate family, my mom, my Uncle Pete, my Aunt Linda, my cousins, explaining the situation clearly and calmly. I included the text message where Jennifer demanded I vacate my home. I included copies of the emails I'd sent and received. I included David's statement, which he'd agreed to put in writing. I explained that I had never refused to support Jennifer, but that I had refused to vacate my own home for her wedding, and that I would not apologize for that boundary. I was terrified when I hit send, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My Uncle Pete called within an hour. "Ashley, I'm sorry," he said. "I had no idea what was really going on. Jen called me and told me you said you didn't want her to be happy. That's not what this is about at all, is it?" "No," I said. "It's not." One by one, people came around. My Aunt Linda was furious at Jennifer for misrepresenting things. My cousins were supportive. Even my mother, after a long conversation where I calmly explained everything, seemed to finally understand. But Jennifer didn't back down. Instead, she did something that shocked everyone. She got engaged to Brandon and set a wedding date for June 15th, at a different venue, a country club in Boston. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was that she did it without telling me. I found out from my mother, who found out from Brandon's mother. When I called her to acknowledge the news, Jennifer was cold. "I'm glad you're happy with how things turned out," she said, her voice clipped and bitter. "Congratulations on keeping your precious house. I hope you enjoy it. Don't expect an invitation to the wedding." "Jennifer," I started. "We're done," she said. "I don't have a sister anymore." And she hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone and felt something break inside me. Not because I was sad about the house anymore, but because I'd lost my sister. And even though I knew I'd done the right thing, even though I knew she'd been wrong to demand what she demanded, it still hurt. That night, I sat on my porch and cried. Sarah came over and sat with me, not saying anything, just being there. And when I finally stopped crying, I felt different. Lighter, somehow. Because I realized that I'd learned something important. Some people will never respect your boundaries, no matter how clearly you set them. And that's not your fault. That's their choice. The wedding happened in June. I wasn't invited, which didn't surprise me. But I did get a text from Emma, Jennifer's oldest daughter, a few weeks later. "Hi, Aunt Ashley. Mom won't let me talk to you, but I wanted to let you know that the wedding was beautiful. I missed you there. Love you." I cried again when I read that, but this time it was different. This time it was about hope, because even though I'd lost my sister, I hadn't lost everything. I had people who loved me. I had a home that was entirely mine, and I had learned that standing up for myself was worth the cost. 6 months later, Jennifer called. It was December, right before Christmas. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hi," she said, her voice small and uncertain. "I wanted to apologize. I was wrong. I was selfish and manipulative, and I shouldn't have treated you the way I did. Can we talk?" I listened to what she had to say. She explained that she'd been struggling with the divorce from David, that she'd wanted the wedding to be perfect, to prove something to herself and to Brandon's family. She said that when I said no, she'd felt rejected, and instead of dealing with that feeling, she'd lashed out. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I hurt you, and I hurt our family, and I'm sorry." I didn't forgive her immediately, but I listened, and I told her that I needed time, that I would be open to rebuilding our relationship, but that I needed her to understand that my boundaries were not negotiable, that she had to respect that I got to make decisions about my own life and my own property. "I understand," she said, "and I respect that, I really do." We didn't become close friends overnight, but over time, we rebuilt something. Not what we had before, but something real and honest and based on mutual respect. And I kept my beach house. I renovated the master bathroom. I hosted Thanksgivings again. I painted the sunroom a soft yellow that makes me smile every time I walk in there. But most importantly, I learned that sometimes standing up for yourself means losing people you love. And that's okay. Because the alternative, letting people run over you, letting them treat your life and your home and your boundaries like they're negotiable, that's a price too high to pay. I am 42 years old and I own a beautiful house on the coast of Maine. I did that by myself, and no one gets to take that away from me.